You're a supporter of Boris Johnson throughout this. You're in the minority, though, aren't you?
I don't believe I am. Certainly the members I've spoken to, certainly people in my constituency, think this is a massive overreach here. We think he's been treated very, very unfairly from the start. Now, I haven't said too much. I've waited for the report to come out. I think you have to do that and you have to treat the committee with respect and to be able to do its conclusions without being interfered with. But now I've read them, really, I think people's worst fears have been confirmed there. And Boris Johnson, quite rightly, has had a rebuttal of many of those things. Now, obviously, they must have some kind of crystal ball and see into people's minds and what they knowingly did. But this 90-day suspension and taking somebody's pass off, though, now any reasonable person can think that that's an acceptable punishment. I don't know, Jane.
Well, that's partly, we understand, heightened because the fact that he breached the committee's confidentiality by releasing a press release on Friday night when he wasn't meant to. So fundamentally, he appears to have shown a certain amount of disregard and contempt for the committee, which they have spelled out. This was a system that he created. He's been hoisted with his own petard here, hasn't he?
Well, I think in terms of confidentiality, I think most of us have been getting a running commentary of what's been going on because the Times has been putting it over Twitter most of the time. So in terms of wherever this has come from, it certainly hasn't been Boris Johnson. I know if I had these allegations levelled at me, I'd want to defend myself. Boris Johnson's issued a very lengthy statement now where he's gone into quite specific detail about a lot of things, and I think he's right to do that. But, of course, he doesn't feel he's been fairly treated. And I think when people prejudge, you look at the former chair had to recuse himself, quite rightly, in fairness, from being on the committee, and then has been replaced by somebody who has, again, prejudged, made comments in advance. Now, you would not accept that in a court of law, and it's all to do with due process and fairness. That's what the public want to see, and I don't think we see that here.
This committee essentially found that it's not that Boris Johnson broke the rules in having these events. It's that he came to Parliament, he knew he'd broke the rules, he'd asked his colleagues if he'd broken the rules. They said, we think you have broken the rules, don't say you haven't in Parliament. And he still went ahead and said so in Parliament. It's lying to Parliament, that's fundamentally. It's showing a disregard for the democratic structure of our country.
But Boris was very clear in the evidence he got that he was giving that statement with the information that had been provided to him. Now, when I was a minister, I would have statements prepared for me. I'd read them off, and if you make a mistake or the information is wrong, sometimes you will come back to the House and you will correct that. And Boris Johnson did that when he was made aware that there were things going on that he wasn't particularly aware of.
But they said that he then lied again to them as a committee.
Well, I think that's a little unfair, really. I mean, Boris Johnson, again, he's given a very open account of himself. He's given a very detailed account of what he's actually done there. And really, they've got no evidence at all or proof that he knowingly misled the House. And I think this is a very, very unfair on Boris Johnson. But I think it also has some quite serious consequences for the rest of us as Member of Parliament. Now, I feel very, very uneasy with MPs removing other MPs or having that decision. We are put there by the electorate, by the people of this country. And yes, we do have to maintain standards, but we should not have people going after people that they don't like, having opinions on them and being able to remove them from the House of Commons. And I think that is very, very wrong.
It's not opinions that they don't like. They say he lied. And voters want MPs, especially MPs who are the Prime Minister, to tell the truth.
Well, absolutely. And as Boris Johnson has said, he believed with what he was saying was the case at the time. And when he found out that some of that information was wrong, he went and corrected that. Now, what you've also got is various arguments that overreach. For example, things concerned with the Metropolitan Police. It's very clear what the law actually is. There was only one incident where a fine was issued there. If I'm honest, I don't think I'd have accepted a fine, or many of my constituents would with that. But the Prime Minister at the time put his hands up, as did the current Prime Minister. I thought, again, that was very unfair, that fine that was there. And that was the only thing that is mentioned. I think it's gone far beyond that remit, where it's actually almost interpreting and making up the law itself as to what they think the law should be. And now, of course, there are questions arising about other people's conduct as well. Now, I would hope I wouldn't make any conclusions about that at all until they've had a fair hearing, they've been listened to, and I won't prejudge them on that. Unfortunately, that's not a courtesy that's been extended to Boris Johnson.
You say that you don't think you're in the minority in terms of coming here to defend him and support him, but from those we've spoken to, it appears that the majority of Conservative MPs largely want him to shut up. I mean, we will find out next week when this report is presented to the House and MPs get an opportunity to vote on it, what the majority of Conservatives do think. But do you accept that he is still damaging the Conservative Party?
Well, I wouldn't have had this in the first place. I think it's wasted a lot of parliamentary time. I think we could be getting on with a legislative agenda and a lot more important things that are going on there. And people want to see an end to it, and I completely get that. And we've had a very difficult year. The polling is very difficult, and divided parties don't win elections. So I do hope that we're able to come together and put this behind us. But before then, I think there's some unfinished business, and this needs dealing with on Monday.
Brendan Clarke-Smith, we appreciate you coming in and talking to us. Thank you.